Alright, today I'm going to be working on this powered PRR Mantua B unit. So before we get into anything else, let me go take this thing over to my track and show you how it sort of runs. Alright, so to briefly test it out, I've got the B unit set up on the track, so I will give the thing some power. Just wiggle it a little. I don't know how well you can hear it, but it is trying to run. Yeah, as you can tell, it doesn't really want to run, so let's go get to work on this thing. Alright, now before we get to work, I did want to address something about this. I don't actually have an A unit to go with it. I thought this was a dummy when I got the lot, but surprisingly, it's actually powered, so we can do something with this and get it running. And the second thing, as is the case with the lot of Mantuas, is it's actually got rivets in here, and I have been told a trick that actually works well to get these things working decently again, but I will address that later. And I was going to replace the shell and couplers, but I've decided I'm probably not going to be hanging on to this thing for all that long, so I just want to get it running well. So, let me grab my engine cradle, and we will get to work. Alright, so I figured out part of my issue with this thing. To get the thing out of the actual unit, there's two little tiny screws, really hard to see, but right in there on each side. So I guess I'll have to show you the trick earlier. What I was told is that you have to actually break these side frames off to be able to access the inside of this thing, and then glue them on later. That's the first one out, and that one seemed like it might have already been slightly broken. And then we can pop this one out, and this means I can access these screws. Alright, so now I've got both of these little drive units out here, and it seems like they're in okay shape. I did have to break off the truck frames on the rear as well, if you saw that, just because they were kind of stubborn, they didn't want to get out at all, so that's how it's going to have to be done, apparently. So I think to start, I want to see if I can clean these rear wheels off and deal with the rear truck first, since that'll be the easier one. And then I'll go in and I'll give the bearings a little bit of oil. There's not much that needs to be done there. I'm also going to wait to glue the truck side frames back on until it's completely back into the unit. Just simply because it's going to be much more difficult to get it back in if I put the side frames on now. I'm actually going to grab another tool, so I will get that, and hopefully that'll help clean these off a little bit more. These wheels are not the cleanest things, but they should still pick up power half decent. They do look quite pitted, so I think that might be part of why. And now I think I'll move on to this, which I've also been told the best thing to do is to pry off each of these wheels and then put them back on, which I know is, again, not the most ideal thing, but apparently that's the best way to actually get one of these things fixed. If I can get it out. So I think first of all I'm going to get in here and try and clean off the commutator any bit that I can. Which again with this is going to be a little more difficult, but I can still try. I think that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. I'd like to be able to clean it out more, but with the way this thing is, I just don't see it being possible. It's part of the issue I have with these older Mantua engines, but oh well, I guess it's what you've got to deal with. And now I guess I'll try and get whatever I can out of the gearbox, which I don't think is going to be very much. But I'll still try and get something out of there. I really do think that's about all I can do, so I think all I really have the ability to do is just pump a little bit of oil into the system, and that's about it. It's also not the way I'd recommend getting oil into an engine, but I don't really have another option. Alright, so it was not very much to do, but I think that's just about everything I can do with this thing. So now I'm just going to clean up a little bit, and then I'll come back and we will put everything back into the shell. Alright, so it's now just about time to start putting this thing back together, and I will get the engine cradle back over here. This is probably going to take a little bit. I'm just going to move this closer to me so it's slightly less annoying. I want to start with the front power truck because I think that'll be the one I have the most issues with. Alright, it's now a little bit later, and I have just gone in and secured these off camera because it was quite a pain to get them in. So now these are both in, and the next thing I have to do, and maybe the last thing, is just going to be installing this weight up. So once I do this, I'm not going to install the truck frame covers yet, just because I want to test the thing out first. Alright, the weight is not the most secure thing in the world, but it'll hold. So now let me go test this thing out, and I'll report back. And if it's good, I might just come back and show you the thing running with the truck covers on. Alright, so despite what I said, I haven't actually tested the thing out yet. All I've done is I've glued the truck covers on, so this will be its first test run. And it starts right up this time. Seems to run better that way, though. I let the thing do a lap and let it come back around, which I know you can't see, but it is running around in the background pretty well. It is still a little bit stuttery, so it might need to warm up and run in just a little bit, but I think that's substantially better than what we started with. So let me take you back to the desk, and I will close out the video. Alright, so I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.